Alright, here we are in Goa to finally ride the 2025 390 Adventure. It's a motorcycle which has piqued our interest ever since we swung our leg on the new generation Duke 390 which we rode last year. And going by just how good it turned out to be, we have been smacking our lips in anticipation to ride this. Yeah, this is based on the new Duke platform. Starting with the engine, this is the updated engine, makes 46 PS, 39 Newton meters of torque. So yeah, a little bit of more power and torque compared to the previous engine, the previous gen. But having said that, the overall weight of this motorcycle has gone up a little bit. It's up by 5 kgs, but the overall power to weight ratio is similar, or rather in fact this one is a little bit better. With the changes that they've made to the engine, especially by moving the gearbox, is give it what it so badly needed: more clearance, more capability. So now you have as much as 237 mm of ground clearance at your disposal, and you have a 21-inch front. You have 200 mm travel at the front, you have 205 mm wheel travel at the back, and despite all of that, the seat height has gone down to 830 mm. That's a solid 25 mm less than the previous model, which is brilliant, absolutely brilliant, which is going to make this motorcycle so much approachable, so much accessible for so many enthusiasts who were previously scared or intimidated by the taller seat on the previous model. In terms of the other electronics, yeah, this is one of the most robust packages that you can get, because you have everything under the sun. You have cornering ABS, cornering traction control. You get a bi-directional quick shifter, which was also there previously, but they have worked on it to make it even better. You now get cruise control, which I think is going to be a godsend, especially for the people who are looking at this as a proper touring machine. And in terms of the way this looks, yes, you can see that this has been inspired by their rally motorcycle. I love the way the front looks with the projector lamp. It has a really good rally feel. This one also gets the new updated TFT dash, which we have seen on the Duke 390. And the tank size has remained the same, 14.5 liters. So in terms of brakes, this one does get sintered pads, which is what I wanted from the previous 390 Adventure. But the caliper on this is an axial caliper, and that was mainly done with the intent of having more progressive braking when you're riding this off-road. So we'll of course put that to test as well. That's the spec sheet for how is the 390 Adventure to ride. Let's first start off with the engine. Now this one has a much more aggressive and shorter final drive than even the Duke 390. So this one has 3 more teeth at the back compared to the Duke 390, and you can feel the difference. So one of the things which I felt was lacking on the previous iteration of the motorcycle, where it was not as engaging to ride. It was a good adventure touring motorcycle, but that KTM factor was missing. And I think now they have fixed it with this one, with the more aggressive final drive, because you're always in the torque band, and you can feel the engine is a lot more responsive and peppy. But having said that, to be honest, when I first started out the ride, I was riding in the street mode, and my initial impressions, I was a little bit disappointed because I thought that, again, the punch was missing and I wasn't really enjoying the ride as much. It felt quite similar to the older model, but that was until I switched on to the off-road mode. The interesting part here is KTM have gone for the most aggressive, the most responsive map in the off-road mode, which is unusual because normally when you look at other adventure motorcycles, the off-road mode is the one which is more detuned, where the throttle response is a little easier to manage. But they've gone the other way because they feel this is the KTM DNA, and I'm not complaining because finally the engine came alive. We were popping power wheelies in the second gear. And yeah, I was having the same smile on the face as I had when I first got off the new Duke 390. It's not just the fun factor which has improved because of the overall shorter gearing, also the tractability of the motorcycle has increased tremendously. Now you can easily ride around everywhere in the third gear, even in stop-go traffic, barely keep one finger on the clutch. Even if you don't do that now, you can still get by because KTM have introduced the crawl feature, which just prevents the motorcycle from stalling by keeping the revs a little bit high, especially when you are going really, really slow. But on the flip side, the vibrations on the motorcycles have also increased and they feel a little more enhanced, a little more prevalent compared to the Duke 390, which was a motorcycle which impressed me a lot in terms of refinement. So I'm a little bit disappointed as to why that is, because they start from 4500 RPM and they increase as the revs climb. They do settle down in the 5th and 6th gear. So yeah, you can definitely cruise 130, 140 easily on a motorcycle with the engine still calm and the foot pegs are not abuzz. And the good part about the final drive being so short is the fact that you still have a lot of punch in the 6th gear for those quick overtakes. You don't have to go down the gears. Not that you mind doing that, because the quick shifter on this is amazing. They have finally heard our prayers and they've fixed the quick shifter. Both the shifter and the blipper are buttery smooth, really slick, as on the competition. The other problem I found with the engine was its heat, which was surprising in the sense the TFT kept throwing out high coolant temperature warnings all the time. In fact, at one point, even the engine check light came on, and when I did look at the temperature, it only said 100 degrees. So it could be just that particular motorcycle, because I couldn't really feel any of the heat coming onto the legs. You're supposed to get the high coolant temperature warning around 110 degrees. So we were nowhere close to that mark and still we were getting that. So maybe it's just a software issue, I'm not 100% sure. The other thing which I found a little bit lacking were the brakes. For whatever reason, I kept triggering the ABS a lot when we were going on a really fast stretch. We were doing around 125, 130. And I felt the ABS kick in quite a bit, and thereby increasing the braking distance. I know this has axial calipers instead of radial calipers compared to the Duke 390. I don't think the overall stopping power is a problem because you also have really good feel from the brakes. So I'm not 100% sure if it's the ABS calibration or if it's the tires not being sticky enough to put down the stopping power. The next thing, on the highways, yes, the motorcycle can cruise around 130, 135. Above that, even though the engine will stay quite happy up to 140, one thing which will get in your way is the windscreen and the buffeting that it causes. Up to 130, it was still okay, but after that, all the wind was directed straight onto my temple, causing a lot of buffeting. So I would have definitely preferred a shorter windscreen which directs the air straight onto my chest rather than a taller one. And the other big problem with this, it's not even adjustable. And I think when you go off-road, this is going to be a tad bit too tall. In terms of ride quality, yeah, you have so much more suspension travel now. The suspension is fully adjustable. And yeah, I was very, very happy with the front on the road. At the back, I felt the shock was a little bit on the stiffer side, but then again, we haven't really had much time to play around with the suspension setting. I'm sure with just a few clicks, because at the back, you do get rebound adjustability and preload adjustability, so I'm sure that would be an easy fix. I just haven't had the time on this really tight first ride, so I think I'll wait for that to play around with the suspension when we are back home and we have the motorcycle for a longer time. And finally, in terms of ergonomics, yes, the rider's triangle is really, really upright as you would expect on an adventure motorcycle. And now in this iteration, I'm sure a lot of you would be so happy to find that the seat height now, despite the increased ground clearance, despite the suspension travel, is now just 830 mm, which makes it a lot more accessible to have both your feet firmly on the ground. But for me personally, I feel I would need an accessory seat which is a little bit taller to fit my 5'11" frame, because right now I feel that when I'm sitting on the motorcycle, I feel a little too cramped, and basically my butt started hurting barely in the 50-kilometer ride which we did. So I think it's not really the seat. I think the seat is okay. It has enough padding. It's more to do with the way I'm sitting on the motorcycle and I'm kind of stuck in the same position. And as soon as I took my foot off the pegs, immediately the pain went away. So again, that's a telltale sign that it's basically the rider's triangle, which is a little too tight for me. And I think with a taller seat, another 20 mm more, and I think I should be perfectly fine. So I'm really hoping KTM launch an accessory taller seat for people like us. Another factor which makes the rider's triangle even tighter is this humongous rubber insert, which again is a telltale sign that they themselves were aware of the vibrations issue on the pegs, which is why they have that big a rubber insert to keep the vibes down. This is of course something which you're going to get rid of when we're going to be riding off-road. This is what the 390 adventure is all about. This is where it really thrives, and in many ways this was the baseline for the new 390 adventure which you see in front of your eyes, is to thrive off-road. And man, does it do so well here. Because you have all the ingredients. More importantly, you have a 21-inch front wheel which just makes short work of this really rocky terrain even when you're going at speed. This was the problem with the previous bike. The previous bike was quite capable, the balance was good, but then when you really started going fast, when you added speed to the equation of your off-road adventure, that's where it would start falling apart, because you did not have enough travel, you did not have enough clearance, and the suspension just wasn't quite cut out for really fast dune bashing. But that's history now, because this motorcycle is meant to do exactly that. This was still a very short ride. I couldn't really get enough time to play around with the suspension. There were a couple of places where we were sending it over rocks where the front bottomed out. But with a few clicks, it was already better, and I would like to play around with it a little bit more and test it extensively. But first impressions are solid. Next, what I'm really impressed with is the overall balance of the motorcycle. This is one area where KTM have really hit the nail bang on the head in terms of, now you have a motorcycle which is a little bit heavier, it's a little bit taller, but still in terms of balance, in terms of weight distribution, it feels that the center of mass is still quite low, which makes it very easy for you over the really technical terrain, to make it very easy for you to take U-turns. Inspires a whole lot of confidence. You still have really good feel of what the front is doing despite the 21-inch front. Another big check mark, something that we had wished for on the previous motorcycle, was tubeless spoke rims, which this one gets, which makes you feel that much more reassured when you go in the middle of nowhere on a motorcycle this capable. You also get all the basic protection like the engine guard, the aluminium bash guard, these knuckle guards, all as standard equipment, which is fantastic. And in terms of the engine, in terms of the map, off-road map was definitely my go-to map here, because the bike feels so much more alive, so much more sprightly. Even the stuff that worked on the road in terms of tractability, especially in lower RPMs, now with the crawl mode, they also really shown here in really technical terrain. The bike definitely feels a lot more rideable for everyone, with all the changes they are made to the sprocketing, to the engine, with a little more emphasis on low end and mid-range, and with the crawl mode, it definitely is not as inclined to stall. Now it makes your life a whole lot easier, because you can now ride in the most technical terrain without even needing to feather the clutch, which is brilliant. In terms of electronics, I'll be honest, I just switched off everything, switched off the ABS, which anyway switches off the rear ABS when you're riding in the off-road mode. Also switch off the traction control, because for me, I think those are really good features to have, especially if you're new to riding off-road, especially with this off-road map, which is really aggressive. So I think with the MTC on, it will make the motorcycle a little more easy to ride for new guys. The only two problems which I have with this motorcycle here is the windscreen. I would definitely want the windscreen to be a little bit shorter, especially when you're on off-road trail. Secondly, the question mark remains over the underbelly exhaust. which is quite a surprise on an adventure motorcycle because we are so used to seeing upswept exhaust on adventure motorcycles. But KTM have assured us that they've done extensive testing with this exhaust and they've had no problems with the water going in. Even when, while testing, they took the motorcycle in really deep waters with the water almost up to the engine guards, and them stalling the bike, starting it again and still not having a problem, which is great. But I really hope that after seeing all of this, if more and more people go and attempt it, they will be covered under warranty in case the water still goes in. I hear them and I believe them, but I would still, as a consumer, want that little bit of assurance that in case, God forbid, water does go in, if I'm trying to go in really deep waters, water crossings, that I will be covered under warranty. So to summarize, there is no doubt that this motorcycle is head and shoulders better than its previous model. It pretty much has everything that we had asked for and hoped for in the previous model. It checks all the right boxes. It has all the equipment that you want. It has insane capability now. At the same time, at 182, 183 kgs, it is still very light motorcycle, which is exactly what you want when you're riding in technical terrain, when you're riding off-road. Comfort-wise, I would definitely hope for a taller seat to make life when I'm touring on this motorcycle that much comfier. And yes, I would like for them to really work on the ABS calibration and see if they can dial it down a little bit, because right now I felt it was a little too intrusive and not the most helpful when you're braking really hard in emergency situations, even on the road. But yeah, the fact that KTM have launched this with all of these updates, with all of these improvements for barely any hike in the pricing at 3.67 lakhs, it's an absolute steal. I, for one, cannot wait to spend more time on it and see how it fares against its arch nemesis, which is the Himalayan 450.